we were talking about, the English language in Japan, in our previous chat, we also touched on how sometimes for English learners in Japan, they find it a lot easier for them to express themselves in
Mhm.
English rather than their native Japanese language, which brings me to talk a little bit more about the mental health issues, the topic in Japan.
I definitely have an easier time thinking in English when it comes to trying to process my feelings, right? And I thought this was just because I used to talk about that with my parents, but some of my Japanese friends who are not bilingual, who are English learners, have actually told me that they find it easier to express themselves in English when they talk about their feelings. So, like in relationships, for example, like there are certain times where the English language has certain vocab to describe or express a certain emotion that Japanese just simply doesn't have.
Mm.
So, when I say the strength of the language, English literally has more vocab for emotions, right? So I think it's much easier for people to express themselves like in English, and like even if they're not uh, like native in English, once they get to a certain level where they can describe how they're feeling, then it just becomes so much easier to express themselves, and they become much more expressive human beings simply because now they have the means, the tools to express themselves. And circling back to like therapy, I, yes, am very vocal about the fact that I go to therapy because it's changed my life in so many different ways, and all positive. And it's something that is still quite taboo in Japan, where like every school does technically have a counselor, but if you're seen going into the counselor's office, people kind of give you the side eye and like, oh, like what's wrong with her that she's going to counselor's office, you know? And I'm hoping that that's still, changing. But I am trying to open people's minds up in more more than one way of like, yes, I speak both languages. Yes, I'm born in Japan, regardless of how I look. And yes, I am a very, very big advocate for therapy. And there's nothing wrong with going. There's no reason to be ashamed in going. And so far, when I've vocalized that in Japan, the response has kind of been like, oh, okay. And then people are just like, don't really know how to handle it. So it's still, I think, a very new concept in Japan that you are going to therapy and you still a perfectly normal, functioning human being, that you don't have some like, mental illness. And maybe you do, but like that is so much more talked about, and it's so much more, how do you say, accepted in the West,